welcome to this videocast for subscribers to davidicke.com. Well, I've been writing for decades about the technique of crashing the economy, either nationally or globally, and then offering the solutions to the problem which transform society. Since 2008, we've had the massive expansion of what they call austerity programs, all as a result of what I show in the books to have been a cold, calculated, engineered economic catastrophe in 2008. But what I said after that was that, catastrophic as that has been for so many people, the number of lives it's destroyed, the number of opportunities it's destroyed, that what happened in 2008 and in its aftermath is almost as nothing compared with what is planned. And now we have an opening to 2016 that has had the Chinese markets, casinos, in turmoil. And this has had a knock-on effect to other markets, casinos, all around the world. And you add in the collapse in the oil price, which in any sane society, any sane economy should be a good thing. But in this nonsense, in this ludicrous economic madhouse that we have foisted upon us, apparently it's a bad thing. And the question for many people will be, well, why do you want to crash the economy? Well, what's planned is what's planned, what is unfolding before our eyes, is what I've termed the Hunger Games society. This is being manipulated from the shadows, and it's been going on for a long, long time. And this is the plan. You have an elite of less than 1% of the world population dictating everything through a world government, world central bank, world army, a microchip population. That's what this transhumanism is all about. And you then have not the working classes as it's been up to this point. You have the vast majority of the rest of the population subjugated by this less than 1% in abject poverty and servitude and slavery. That's the plan. And then in the middle, between the elite less than 1% and the poverty-stricken masses, you have the police state, the merciless police state, imposing upon the masses the will of the less than 1%. Now, I've been going on about this for so long, and every day it moves further forward. Now, what you need to do to bring about that structure, that situation, is to part the vast majority of the world's population from their money, from their wealth, from their, as far as it goes, means of independence, control of their lives. And what we've seen up to this point is when say a banking system is crashed, governments, i.e. the people, come along and bail out the banks. And what they do then, and we've seen that since 2008, what they call a bailout is actually a transfer of responsibility, financial responsibility for the crash, which was the work of the banks and the hidden hand behind the financial system. the responsibility is moved from the banks via governments to the population, who were subjected to the consequences of what the banks have done. Look at what's happened since 2008. You had the crash in the banking system. You had banks and major insurance companies, etc., in trouble, desperate trouble, on the brink of collapse trouble. And then we had this massive bailout by governments. Stage one, the problem, the responsibility for the problem is transferred from the banks who caused it to the governments that helped cause it by removing regulation. And so now the government is holding the responsibility for the bank's behavior. And then, next stage, that is transferred to vast numbers of the population in what's called austerity. We've got no money, we've had to bail out the banks, we've got no money, we can't pay for you to have the basics of life. Wars? Oh yeah, we've got money for them. Total scam, all of it. But even at that stage, we still have great numbers of people who are not in the less than 1%, who are still all right. They still have what a lot of people would call a lot of money, a lot of wealth. You have a lot more people who are, we're okay. But if they're not part of the less than 1%, they want their money too. They want them in economic servitude. So how can they do that? Well, that is where not the bailout, but the bail-in comes in. And it all really started with the banking crash in Cyprus in 2013, when instead of governments bailing out the banks, they said above a certain amount, which is guaranteed within the European Union, 100,000 euros at the time, anything above that was fair game for the banks to take from their own depositors to be bailed out. And a lot of people who were, by most standards, had a lot of money, had a lot less when that process in Cyprus was over. Because much of what they had above the guaranteed 100,000 euros was just taken, gone, blink of an eye. And this set the precedent, absolutely on purpose, all planned all along. And now we have a situation where they're saying any more banking crashes and the bail-in is what will be used to respond to it. And at the start of January in Britain, the amount of money guaranteed in banks for depositors by the government was reduced from £85,000 to £75,000. And then when the bail-ins come in, anything above that will be fair game to be taken, because you put money in a bank. What does that mean? It just means that you've given your money to the bank and you are an unsecured creditor. That's what you are as a depositor. So this bail-in is a means to steal the wealth of people who at the moment are feeling they're all right, because they are in the gun sights of all this because of the Hunger Games society and the poverty-stricken slave masses that I'm talking about. The financial system has been created from the start so that a few can control the many. Think of all the things you'd like to do in your life. If you could really make any choice, and invariably, if you can't do it, it will be because you don't have enough money. So money, control of money, equals choice. Control of money and how you earn money and how money is shared out dictates your basic freedom. Whether you've got to be somewhere at this time in the morning until this time in the afternoon, doing something you absolutely hate day after day just to earn the money to survive. The financial system has been systematically created to impose global slavery. And now what I'm talking about with these manufactured crashes and the bail-ins is to take that on and on and on until we reach the Hunger Games society situation that I described a few minutes ago. So when you look at the financial system, first of all, banks are lending money, he said in quotes, called credit, that has never, does not, and will never exist as a real substance, a real something. It's just figures on a screen. And you not only are borrowing figures on a screen, money out of fresh air, called credit, you have to pay the banks for it in what we call interest. There are many, many things that come from this. First of all, banks are allowed to lend 10 times and more. It's actually many more in truth, but at least 9-10 times what they have on deposit. It's called fractional reserve lending. Every time you put a pound or a dollar in a bank, you're giving it the right to lend 9 or 10 it doesn't have, called credit. And so when you go to a bank for a loan, say $50,000, all the bank is doing is typing into your account $50,000, pulled out of fresh air under the ludicrous rules of fractional reserve lending. How did this come about? As I've been exposing in the books for years and years and years, the same force that owns the banks owns the governments that make the laws that affect the banks. That's how it works. So you borrow, in theory, £50,000 from a bank. They type into your account £50,000. That's what they do. And you then go away and you spend £10,000 of that to buy a car. So you give the owner of the car some fresh air money that has been given to you, and he then puts the £10,000 in, or dollars, whatever it is, in his bank. Now his bank could lend 10 times that on money that was fresh air, and is still fresh air, but was fresh air when it was created. And this just shows you how much theoretical money, i.e. profits, that one single loan can create in the banking system. And there's another thing. You borrow this £50,000, $50,000, but you're not paying back that. You're paying back 50,000 plus interest. The interest is never created. Thus, there is never, ever nearly enough money to pay back all the debt and all the interest on the debt that is outstanding at any point. Thus, people losing their homes, their jobs, their businesses, their land, their property, They're all built into the system on purpose. And what this has allowed to happen is for the banks, in exchange for fresh air created out of nothing credit, to steal the real wealth of the world. We'll give you nothing, or you're going to pay us to do it, and then you give us the real wealth of the world. And this has been going on century after century, and this is how the less than 1%, or major reason why the less than 1% now owns virtually half the wealth of the world. This is how they've done it. And so the financial system, and most of these financial journalists and economists, they don't bloody understand it. It's a simple structure you've got to look at, not all the bloody jargon and stuff that no one understands, including most of the people saying it. The financial system has been created on purpose as a means of control and dictatorship. And because it is built on nothing, fresh air, it's all about what they call in the markets, the casinos, confidence, market confidence. So when you're confident, you spend more money, you borrow more money, you invest more money, in theory money. And when you lose confidence, you do the opposite. You stop spending, you stop investing, you stop all the things that happen during a boom, and suddenly you've got a recession. And one of the key things that creates, or the key thing that creates a recession, is the inability of people to raise or borrow what they call money. So we had, after 2008, what did they call it? The credit crunch. And so who decides how much money is in circulation? Whether there's an abundance of units of exchange in circulation, or whether there's a credit crunch? The banks. Because the vast, overwhelming majority of money comes into circulation at the start as a debt, the unit of exchange that allows human life to happen, and for choices to be made, and for lives to be lived, starts out its life as a debt. Why aren't governments creating money interest-free so it becomes a unit of exchange from the start and not a unit of debt? Because, I repeat, the same hidden hand that controls the banks controls the governments. And Abraham Lincoln issued interest-free money called greenbacks in the United States. Whatever happened to Abraham Lincoln? Not too long afterwards, he was no longer with us, because this creation of money out of nothing is absolutely fundamental to the control of the hidden hand. So it's a figment of our imagination, the financial system. And I've likened it many times to, you ever seen these cartoons where there's cartoon characters chasing each other on a big chase, and they run off the edge of a cliff. And for a while, because they haven't realized they've run off the edge of the cliff because they're concentrating on the chase, they keep going forward on fresh air. And then there comes a point where someone looks down and realizes there's no land under their feet anymore. They're in mid-air over a canyon. And what happens then? All gone. Now that's how the financial system works. What they do, because of course they also own the media, this hidden hand, and they certainly own the minds of so many that comment on the financial situation in the world, who have no clue really how it works, they build up what they call market confidence. And when that happens, there's a boom, and the banks lend loads of money. That's great. And then they create a boom, and people get into more debt because they've got this confidence, and they invest in the stock markets because they've got this confidence. Stock market's going up. And then, having built that confidence up, they then start to, by any means that they choose, to destroy that confidence. Oh, there's a financial crisis, yeah. And that's what they're doing now. And what happens then is people look down and go, oh, it's fresh air. That happened in 2008. And what they do is they say, you're running on solid ground. It's all fantastic. It's all fantastic, all fantastic. And then they go, just have a look down. Oh, that's how it goes. They build up the confidence. People invest, put their money in stuff, and then they crash it, and they take that money and they take those resources. They take that real wealth from the population. And this is what we're seeing unfolding now. I'm not saying this massive global crash is going to come tomorrow or next week or next month, but it is coming. Why? Because it's in the plan to come as part of this ongoing manipulation to install the Hunger Games society.